Hi, and welcome to Whole Soul School and Foundation's Mind, Body, Spirit, Fitness podcast series. My name is Marie Mohler, and I am an author, intuitive, and the host of today's conversation. I want to remind our listeners that the mission of Whole Soul School and Foundation is to educate, enrich, integrate, and liberate the soul. We also support programs, projects, and products that are specifically designed to educate and inspire people whose lives have been impacted by incarceration. Our teachings and offerings aim to provide hope, healing, and positive possibilities to people worldwide. Joining us again today is Sue Wells, my good friend and founder of Fairy Cosmology. She brings through channelings and intuitive guided messages and meditations from creation and the fairy and nature realms. Welcome, Sue, and I'm so glad to be back with you and our listeners talking about all things connected with the mind, body, spirit, and how to keep ourselves fit, grounded, happy, and whole in these shifts. So today we are going to be focusing our attention on the topic of authenticity and being and living authentically, which is a really powerful and important concept, I think, for many of us in the world today, journeying these changes and shifts and things that we're all experiencing on some level. So welcome, Sue, and welcome. I'm so glad to be talking about this with you today.
Good morning. It is a beautiful sunny day here in Auckland, New Zealand, and I'm again really excited to be here. We've been doing this podcast, I think, since the middle of the year, and here we are. It's November.
Yes. Yes.
Just 2 months out from the new year, and I'm thrilled that we're still here, thriving, creating the podcast, and able to have these conversations to share what we're picking up on around our own lives and on the planet, and also picking up what we think are current themes that are going to support other people out there. And the topic of authenticity is one that's been actually very much on my mind the whole of this year, if not even before that. And I feel it's a theme that's actually growing in momentum, that there is a real call within people to connect authentically and to experience authentic relationships. And it's a topic that's very, very rich in its nature. And I think I'd like to ask you, what does authentic mean to you?
It's such a good question, and really it's such a good vibration, because authenticity, when I just tune in and I feel that for a moment, and I just invite any of our listeners listening to the call, let's just all take a moment and just tune into just a word or a feeling that comes for a second. Because when we're tuning in and asking what anything means to us, what I find is we have to translate that into vibration. And when we're talking, we're engaging our mind at some level. But when we feel it and we just get quiet for even just a few seconds, we can feel a deeper truth of energy that wants to tell us what we're feeling about that word or that concept. So
I think that's a great idea. I think if we just give everybody a minute just to sit there and reflect or tune into, listen to yourself, listen into your heart about what authentic means for you. You can even grab a piece of paper if you want and just let people have a little self-ponder.
Yeah. So for me, Sue, when I tune into that feeling of authenticity, the first word or the feeling, but you have to translate feelings into words when we're communicating about them, that comes up as being free. is being free to be the energy and the divinity, but even bigger than whatever that is, free to be the frequency that I am, free to creatively express myself, free to be an expression of source and to be an expression of my gifts. So I think about, when I think about authenticity, I think about being able to be me, being able to really be free in whatever way that wants to express itself. And you know, I've lived a good many years on this planet already, and so I can think about the experiences and times in my life when I didn't feel completely free to be who I really am. And I've had many phases in my life of coming out of the closet, so to speak. And so certainly I, you know, in college, when I realized my own sexuality as a lesbian woman, that was an expansion, an expression of my authentic self, right? That's who I am in this lifetime. That's a part of who I am. And there was a part of me that for a time didn't feel either safe or comfortable or just okay with fully expressing that in the timeline that I was in, you know, almost 30 years ago now. And so the world was a different place 30 years ago. And when we live our lives from the outer in, right, we're trying to project who we are to you know, tell the story that we want the public to know. We're not really living from the inside out. We're living from the outside in, telling us how we feel. And so that's a long answer, but I just feel that there's been many phases of my life that where at different periods of time, and I've had a lot of spiritual growth spurts in my life. And so, you know, there have always been times where I'm expanding into something new. And I can tell that whatever, and this is before, because now I think I pretty much am who I am all the time. But I'm sure there's still some kind of circumstance that maybe I'd enter, you know, a gathering or something where I'd feel like, okay, something about me is different than the vibration that I sense here. And maybe you just feel like you need to be quieter or smaller or something, whatever that is, not being quite expressive as who you are. And so I think authenticity is something that it's a freedom inside ourselves to really be who we are in, you know, really all walks of life. All of our experiences of life is some of the, I think, the ultimate goal for a soul being. But we do that in stages maybe, and some people listening might feel that they might feel very comfortable with their friends, but they wouldn't, you know, share certain things at work, right? We might compartmentalize more, and the degree of compartmentalization in our lives reflects perhaps our own comfort level with living free and living authentically and living our authentic self. And the last thing I might tack onto that, because we have lots to talk about with all of this, but is the more we can be in that authentic self, the more we can live authentically and be free to be really our light inside us, then the more able we are to embrace our abilities as creators to bring through the gifts that we are meant to bring through in this world. And when we're stifling those gifts and we're, you know, putting a lid on our creative skills and our birthright as creator beings, then we're not living as authentically. And so I think it's kind of quite a scale that we've all journeyed. I'm sure everybody's felt that at some level in school, or, you know, when if you said what you were really thinking or believing in a classroom or something, and lots of other people weren't thinking or agreeing with whatever that is, you know, we definitely get reflected back to us in the world as it is today, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And I think that in many ways determines some of how we respond to that, is how comfortable we are being authentic. And so until we have enough life experiences, or maybe we were fortunate enough to have really fabulous, open and very conscious parents who could help that, support that self-expression, no matter what. And, some of us might have been fortunate to have that. And for those of us that didn't, and I would say in some ways I would be in that latter category, that I had to learn how to become comfortable and express and expand who I am. So that's a lot of feelings about authenticity, and I'm expressing them authentically.
It's a great starting point, and yeah, I experience being authentic as an organic, relaxed state. And what does that mean? So everybody says.
Please tell us.
So I feel that when I am relaxed in my own being, I'm able to express myself authentically. And that's a space where I'm expressing myself from my heart. And it's a space where I am speaking as a soul. It's a space where I'm at peace with who I am. I'm relaxed and comfortable with how I present myself. It's a space where I feel at home in my own body and my own being. And when I am experiencing and living from there, it is natural. It's actually natural to just be who I am. It doesn't require any forcing or efforting. It doesn't require a need or a desire to prove or show or present myself as being any particular thing with any particular agenda. It doesn't require me to feel that I either need to hide my authentic self or aggressively present my authentic self. It just is who I am. And when I'm there and I'm in that space, when I'm being who I truly am, I don't even really need to have a job description for it. So I don't even need to be able to say, well, Sue is these 5 things. It just is who I am at that moment. And I think that it's something that space, that experience, I actually feel is really rare. You've touched on this already. We live in a world where we are surrounded and filled with labels and constructs around who and what we are. And even people who've been brought up in a household that is spiritual, often that comes in a package, a form of religion, for example. And those things have a package around them about who you are.
Yes.
And, it's funny, this actually was just thinking about that. I'll rephrase that, I wasn't thinking. I was talking to Spirit last night and to the fairy and elemental creation realm, and they suggested to me that we've even lost that connection to our authentic being through the way we name our children. I know that there are cultures historically that have treated the naming of people as almost like an initiation where their name is discovered and or tuned into. But we tend to give people names because obviously we all have a name, don't we? You're Maria, so
yeah.
But the processes behind how we do that may be very genuine in their own right. For example, my middle name is Shirley. I was named after an auntie who never got married or had children, and she was considered to be like the family favorite auntie. She's kind of like the classic spinster who dedicated her life to service to other people, including looking after the kids of all the other family members. So she's very beloved. So I feel deeply honoured to be named after her.
Yes.
But that's a convention that we have as a society, and it doesn't actually tell you anything about the vibration of who I am. Now, my first name is Susanne. It's actually spelled Susanne. And I am going somewhere with this, people.
I'm totally following you.
And my name was actually an accident.
Oh.
So before I was born, Mum and Dad thought that they would call me Diane. But when I was born, they took one look at me and said, she's not a Diane. We think she is a Susan. But Dad can't spell. So he went to the birth registry office to register my birth and spelt my name Susanne. Now, but you know what? Sometimes the universe conspires to create magic which has got a level of authenticity to it, whether we even acknowledge it at the time. And as it turns out, the spelling of my name actually resonates with the vibration. If you go back and you look at the root word that it comes from, like where does the name Susanne come from?
Yes.
With my spelling, it actually goes back to the white lotus.
Wow.
And which of course is, the white lotus is the flower that represents meditation. It represents the chakras.
Wow.
It represents all sorts of things to do with spirituality. So
wow,
there's an authenticity in there to the uniqueness of my own being and who I am and what I represent and why I'm here. But from a life example, it was never intended. Mum and Dad weren't consciously ever coming from that space.
right.
So I know that's quite a digression, but
No, it's perfect. It is perfect. Yeah.
But I mean, it just shows you what a huge topic it is, that even from the moment that we are born,
yes,
we are designated. It's almost like in science fiction, how people are designated with a number. You are number 1, you are number 7, you are number 10.
yes.
We are designated with a name which holds a frequency or vibration with it. And that may be one that is in harmony with who we are, but it may be one that's out of harmony with who we are. And a lot of people change their names.
They do. I know a lot of people who've changed their names, and I think you're making a perfect point. And to me, it goes back to that concept of conditioning, right? Because when we grow up in certain conditions, and I think our names are assigned to us, our parents do the best they can to channel through in their own ways. Your dad sounds like he did exactly his job in misspelling your name, but actually making it right. In the misspelling, it was right. And so, and I think, but if you look at the conditions that we grow up in, that on the one half of, this conversation about authenticity, we're throwing off those conditions that we are given or raised with, and, more and more have to spend a lifetime peeling back the layers to uncover what we always were when we came into this world naked and without a name. Right? We're getting back to that birthplace, really, in our authenticity. And then the other thing I was going to build on what you said, that in some other cultures, they do all kinds of things. And like you said, it can be rite of passage or an initiation, or in some cultures, they get renamed at specific events in their life where they demonstrate a certain level of mastery. I think the Native Americans certainly did that. But I remember a long time ago on Facebook, and I don't know if I've mentioned this in a podcast we did together before or not, but it always struck me, and I was so inspired by it, probably because of my Lemurian roots. But I think in like Africa, when a woman gets pregnant and she knows that she's going to have a child, they sing like a conception song, I think, to the child. I mean, they sing a song celebrating the developing baby. And then when the baby's born at birth, they sing a song. And so literally, some kind of song. I don't know if it has words or if it's just sounds. But, in a way, I would even tie, and we are talking about authenticity here, but we seem to have journeyed into the realm of this, of the name. But I think that brings up so many threads to it, which is these conditions and the sounds, and literally like the numerology of our names. And there's many things we can talk about here, but even though in like the US or in New Zealand, Sue, I don't think that people necessarily sing to their kids in the hospitals where they're born, or if they're born in a birthing center. I don't think that's common practice here in our culture in the US anyway. But in Africa, where I read that they did this, the whole point is that we're musical beings, and we're connected with sound and light. And when we're born, we immediately experience, I'm sure, I don't know that any of us can perfectly remember that first moment we opened our eyes when we arrived here, but we let out a cry. We take in air and we make a sound, and we absorb the light and what we see around us. And I think in the cultures where babies are sung to, they're given their first song. And I think our names are musical. And so what I feel like sometimes happens as people grow and develop, they can get out of sync with, or maybe never were in sync with, their name song. And that's part of that awareness of like, do I like my name? Does this, I don't even know that some people even question it. They might just think this is just who I am. And not even think about whether it fits who they are or not. And some people's names are like, when you meet them and you think, oh my gosh, what a perfect name for that person. They're so whatever. They're so a Suzanne, right? They're so that person. And some people, you think, I meet people, so, and definitely as an intuitive, and I'll meet them and they'll tell me their name and I'm thinking, that is not their name. Right? I don't know, but that happens to me all the time, actually.
It does to me too. It's funny,
Yeah.
I'd forgotten until you mentioned just then that there have been many times in my life where I've met people and I've had a completely different name for them. And I look, we could delve that into the realm of past life connections or soul connections.
Right.
I think the key we're heading in on here is identity. And how our name is one of the very first steps, as you say, right from birth. Right from that naming, we are given an identity, a signpost or a signal that says, I am Sue, I am Marie.
Yes.
And that name comes with a convention in our society, depending on where you come from. Some societies like China, your surname is the first name that you give, and then your first name you say it second. But certainly in New Zealand and Australia and the UK and the US, generally, I believe, people would give their first name. They might have a middle name or other names, and then their surname. And so there again, you have an identity tree, which is your lineage, your ancestral lineage. And those things have value. We've already talked about, there's a resonance and there's a frequency and there is a meaning to that. Where I'm coming through in the conversation is about that place of you that's eternal, and the place that is you, that chooses to come here, that chooses to be born, that chooses to experience what it means to be human, chooses to experience the uniqueness of being on earth, and chooses to experience the uniqueness of living through whatever period of time we are currently in. And the authentic part of this conversation is the freedom to reconnect with that, the freedom to be consciously aware of that, the freedom to experience how it is as a soul to be here. And that is what creates the freedom. And then from there, of course, that then creates a whole new model for society. Because even if 1% of the population is living and experiencing who they are authentically from a soul space will begin to make different choices and decisions. Or in some cases, not reinforce their choices and decisions, but reaffirm their choices and decisions. Because, of course, when we are sitting and being who we are as a soul, as a creator, as source of who we are, we're listening from a different place, and we're creating from a different place, and we're living from a different place. And there is no doubt that we're on a planet where often it feels like there aren't a lot of choices, even though technically we do, because of course you can go and have a career, but you know, a career is defined, isn't it? You know,
Right.
we have a society with structure, and hey, there's reasons for that to be the way it is at the moment. And one of the primary reasons we have a society that has so many regulations, instructions, and rules and boundaries are because we've lost touch with who we are. We've lost touch with that inner being. And so we are making choices in our lives that are unguided and unsupported, whether knowingly or unknowingly. Even when we're doing our very best to try and make life choices that serve and support us, most people have lost that innate connection to really know yourself beyond the person. And there's power in that. There's power in being your soul.
Yeah. It's the supreme power. And I think it's in many ways why we come to this earth planet again and again, is to experience ourselves as our eternal nature, and the divine expressions that we can choose to be from the place of the infinite. And I know that's a big concept. Some of our listeners here at Whole Soul School and Foundation might listen to this conversation, and you know, if you're hearing us talk at this level and it's not something that you personally have experienced or can connect with, sometimes being in the frequency and the energy of other people having a conversation that you don't know much about but you'd like to know more about, you can learn a lot just being, you know, just listening and joining in the conversation. And you know, Sue, when we're talking this way too, it makes me think about the question, what if somebody is not experiencing this awareness of themselves as this eternal, sovereign, divine being, in that state of kind of perfection and beauty and light, you know? And what if somebody is in an experience where they don't feel like they can be authentic? I think a lot of people feel that in their jobs today, right? You know, that's just the most public place where a lot of adults spend their time, is at work somewhere. And
Yeah.
if you don't work from home and you work in a company where you have to show up at an office somewhere, you know, I think that's on the hearts and minds of a lot of people, is that I think some people are feeling that summoning to be more free, to be more authentic inside themselves, and to experience more of that and to express more of that. And yet I think some people don't know what path to follow, to just take another step to become, to liberate themselves a little bit and just take one step forward in claiming that inside themselves. And so maybe I'm answering some of my own question, but what do you think about that? What would you say to somebody who from your own just experiences, and from the wisdom of your own journey of what it's like to make that decision? Or is it a step? Is it a decision? Is it inner choice? Is it a meditation? Like what comes up for you when you think about somebody who doesn't know how to be authentic, or they think they don't know how to be authentic and they're at a loss?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And we've all been there.
yeah,
You got to start somewhere, right?
right. It's
So
true.
I think the very first thing I want to reassure people of is that taking that choice, that step, doesn't mean that you wake up the next morning and suddenly you are under obligation to behave or be different. What I mean when I say that is that because when you start this process, it's very easy to become entrapped in an ideal of how that's supposed to look.
Yeah.
And look, I've got a background in meditation, and one of the things that I always remember one of the other meditation teachers sharing with me was that when she first became a meditation teacher, she looked at the other meditation teachers who'd been doing it for a while, and they were all what she perceived as being very still. And that's a physical thing, like they're physically very still. And she thought that's what it meant to be a meditation teacher. So she took the label of a meditation teacher and tried to apply it to herself, but it wasn't who she was. So I'm not talking about taking one set of labels and packages and replacing it with another. What I'm talking about is self-discovery. But that's an oxymoron in itself, because what you really discover in the end is, on a certain level, there's nothing to discover at all. What you've done is you've freed yourself from your own prison of
Yeah.
what you think you're meant to be.
Okay.
So I just wanted to get that stated first. So in terms of where do you go, what do you do? You really, it's a very personal choice, because there's actually a lot of different paths you can take, and different things speak to different people. I recall one of the people you interviewed on Whole Soul School and
Mm.
Foundation. I think his name might be John. I'm sorry, I don't remember. He talked about how he connects. He's become very engaged with sweat lodges.
Oh, Jeff.
And that for
Yeah.
him, when he goes in there, he has an experience with that really speaks to him as a soul and connects him in with who he is.
Yes.
So that's an example of how different things work for different people.
Yeah.
We can suggest tools, and really a lot of what we've talked about in previous podcasts are the kinds of tools that you would want to access into to begin that journey. So, meditation is a useful tool because it does allow you the experience of beginning to learn to discern the difference between the chatter in your head and the spaces between that. Believe me, even for those of you who are frenetic thinkers, there is an experience that is there all the time, which is not thoughts or sounds or colors or images or any of those things. And that's one path that people can take, and there's a lot of different people out there who offer meditation tools and techniques. But even on a really, really simple level, we've said it so many times, just as a starting point, even just sitting down for 5 minutes and using a guided meditation just to tune in and connect inwardly. You can do that. There's a lot of really good books out there. A lot of people go down the path of personal development. I was listening to someone on YouTube last night who actually gave a really good suggestion about another way that you can kind of become more self-aware of who you are. It is a little bit of a spiritual kind of tool, which I suppose most of what I offer is. But so you just have to be a little bit open-minded. But so it's just simply allowing yourself to, if you just take right now as an example, we can actually just all do this exercise right now. So wherever you are sitting, I presume, or maybe walking around your house listening to this podcast, just stop for a minute and just stand or sit. And what you do is you just allow yourself to move your awareness backwards slightly from your body, and imagine that you have behind you a being, and that being will just present however you imagine or perceive that to be. It might even just be a vibration that you feel, and just allow your awareness to just move slightly backwards and into that awareness of that being. And that being is immersed. You are immersed in that being. As you become aware of them, you also realize that that being is not only just behind you, but they're around you as well. That being is you. And just by, whenever you think of it, just simply stopping for 30 seconds and just allow your awareness just to move backwards and connecting into that experience around you, it shifts your perspective. It enables you to become consciously aware of you as a being that is more than your body. It incorporates your body, it incorporates who you physically recognize yourself as being, but it enables you to see and perceive that you are more than that. So that's a really simple tool. In terms of concerns around what does that mean when I go into my job the next day? How do I behave? What do I do? For me, it's a game. And I guess I've just been so dedicated in my life to consciousness that I've always used the tools that I had available at the time. And there have been different tools, different periods of my life as I've encountered different mentors and teachers and understandings and experiences. But whatever that tool has been, I've actively played with it whenever I become aware of it during the day. And what that has done is just gently over time, I've changed. And believe me, it's ebbed and flowed. You know, I'm not immune to the highs and lows of life. I've had some very big challenges in my life that have rocked me to the core of my being. I want to go down the path of authenticity. And so I'm not saying that it makes every day lights and rainbows, because it doesn't. But what it does is it changes you. It opens you. And in doing so, you make different choices. And when you start making different choices, that leads you to a different place in your heart, but also in your life. And it doesn't mean that you're immune to making difficult choices at times, or that you're immune to conflict. My experience of becoming more who I truly am, is that some relationships become more difficult because you're shifting inside of yourself. And as you shift, not everybody around you is in that same place. And so you have changed. And then there's choices to be made around that, about, do you stay where you are, or do you go somewhere else? But what it does do is, do you know what? If nothing else, you can go to bed at night and feel good about yourself in your own heart, because you know that you are being who you are. And you know, there have been times, even just this year, where I've had to make choices around my job, for example, and you know, being able to come home at night and feel that I was listening to myself, that the decision I was making was what was right for me, does bring a level of peace. And in the end, I think most people crave peace if they don't experience it.
Mm.
So that was quite a spiel. I hope within
Yes.
that it's answered a lot of where people might not be clear or might be concerned.
Yes.
Um, it's a starting point, and you are going to go through phases with it. Awakening is, we use the word journey, but it's actually commitment to
Mm.
yourself, and it will take you all sorts of crazy places. And by crazy, what I mean is that you will delve into your own being, and in doing so come across other people who have a similar interest, and through that you'll discover a whole pile of things, and that might take you off somewhere else. But I think that the key thing is that no matter what you're doing, that you have a tool in your kit that's about tuning into you, so that you can be self-discerning and self-aware about the choices you make.
Yeah, that was real. I mean, just there were so many wonderful insights that you shared. I particularly like the exercise. I never um, thought about or learned about what you described, is that you can take a few minutes and you can picture a being behind you, and kind of fall back or relax back into that presence, um, and feel yourself surrounded in that awareness, which to me also helps you reset in a little bit of that witness observer, where you're in this world but you're not really of it, and you can attune to the deeper parts of you that are more true, at whatever level you can connect with that, whether that's if you're in a stressful situation and you're feeling like you're having to conform or tolerate a particular energy or circumstance or something, you can go into that space and connect with something that you know is true for you now, as the human being that you are, or you can be somebody who connects to your divine self in that moment, just depending on whatever level you can relax back, or you can allow yourself to feel that deeper presence and that higher awareness. But that was
Mm,
a beautiful exercise that I love knowing about, and I'd imagine our listeners will as well. And then as you were
yes.
talking, did you want to add something?
Sorry, I just want to put in there that if people are interested in the exercise, I
Yeah.
picked that up off of YouTube, and it's by a woman called Alicia Power, who you actually put me onto, Marie. One of
Right.
your
Yeah.
recommendations to me, and she posts a lot of videos on YouTube that are question answers. So people have asked her a question, and so she answers it, and it's a really good kind of like practical go-to guide for
Mm,
some of these kinds of questions that you and I talk about, that
yes.
as an extra resource that people can go to. So I think her YouTube channel is either called Soul Mentoring or it's called Alicia Power, and that's Alicia spelled Alicia. And so I just took a tool that she described, and I evolved it a little bit for this exercise.
Yeah.
I just want to add as a postscript note to that
Yeah.
description and the exercise I just gave people, that it's about being okay with what you're comfortable with too. So if people feel more comfortable when they're doing that exercise of resting into that being, if you feel more comfortable seeing that as your angel or a passed over loved one, it doesn't matter. The point is that you are reconnecting into your soul self.
Yeah.
So be okay with what you're comfortable with.
Yes.
So
That,
sorry for that interjection. I just really
no,
wanted to make sure that I had honoured that, to point out that resource to people, because Alicia does post a lot of really good practical questions and answers, and also just to acknowledge that I utilised the core of a tool that she recognised herself, and just expanded on it to create it
that
for
was
this
great.
audience.
I love that. And I do remember when you said her name, I thought, oh, I remember her, but I haven't spent much time on her channel. So I look forward to checking that out myself. And, and I guess the other thing I was feeling when you were sharing is that, and it didn't come up at first, but it came when you were talking, that authenticity then is about, I was feeling alignment. When we are in that divine space inside ourselves, when we're connected with ourselves as a soul presence or as a soul being in an outer wrapping, there is something really beautiful that it can almost be unlanguageable, but we can feel it to know it. And I think we all know times in our lives where we feel like we're just totally aligned with something, whether it's a partner, we feel just completely in sync or in harmony or in resonance with who they are. We just love being in their presence. We can finish their, when they're talking, we can finish their sentences. That's a kind of alignment when you're really in a true part of your soul presence that's expressing itself in human form. And I think there's something in that alignment, something we haven't really talked about, but there's this feeling of, our human selves can get so caught up in the linear details of our lives, right? Getting to work, driving to work, dealing with traffic, signing in at work, doing our jobs and all of those things. And they kind of have a little bit of a heavier vibration to them sometimes. But in this feeling of authenticity, as somebody who feels energy, it's more fluid, it's more aligned, it's a frequency of being harmonious inside itself. And when you were talking about, when you go on this journey of authenticity, or we go, what did you say, the commitment, right? The commitment to step up and make these decisions and take these next steps. I think it initially may start with steps that we take or conscious decisions, but it becomes like a flow inside us. It's just an energy. And I'm telling you, like, I move differently in my life now the more authentic I've become. And I kind of flow into experiences, and I flow into connections with other people and relationships that we have, and my partner and I have, and that I have with others. Um, it's not quite that, I don't know, more linear stair step fashion or dots on a page of things that linearly connect. It's more of a way I move now. And when you're more authentic and you're more connected with your center inside, and the center that is light, that's connected to everyone and everything, and that's connected to source or the great mystery or the universe or the all that is, or whatever your word is, for that bigger life force energy that connects all of us, there's a fluid frequency in that, that's kind of, you and I would probably talk about it coming from, the divine feminine is sort of coming into that softer expression of ourselves, just being what we are, which is energy, which is light, which is sound, which is intangible things. We think of ourselves as physical beings, but really we're a spiritual being that's a frequency inhabiting these bodies that serve us and host us for a time. And I think when we can fall back into the fluid, feminine, flowful frequency, all those F words, I find that that's when I'm in that sweet space of the peace that you're describing. And that, when we realize that we're okay, no matter what might be going on in our life, right? No matter what events might be manifesting, good or bad, in our life, we're that timeless presence. And I think when I love most, what I love about when I am in that authentic, aligned frequency, and I think why I associate a great deal of freedom with it, is that I'm in the expansive nature of my soul that knows that that I am everything and everyone all at one time. And anything that I'm expressing comes from the divine. And so if I have an inspiration, it has room to move inside me in this kind of fluid energy to express itself. Um, so, it's not, sometimes in our lives in the human world, we can have these constipated responses, like we have to force things to happen, right? And when we're pushing hard and we're struggling and we're right, we're straining to somehow endure our lives or endure a situation, that's not really the soul. That's the human struggling when it's not connected to the soul, that feeling of constriction and tightness. But the
Mm,
flow comes from the soul and more the feminine aspects of us that know how to let go and release and align ourselves. And when we're aligned, everything that we want and desire happens. And so it may not happen instantly, but you can see people's, I think of athletes when we're talking, Sue, and I was
mm,
talking about alignment just a few minutes ago, and you can see athletes that just get in the zone and they're so aligned that it's like nothing will stop them from making that shot, right, or kicking that field
mhm,
goal, or they just, the other team just, must be groaning because this, whoever it is, just is nearly unstoppable because they're so aligned and in sync in their body and their cells and their neurons and all the things that make our bodies move and flow through time and space. It's just like grace is happening in front of you, right? You could see tennis players do it, you could see swimmers, like they just get in the zone of the flow. And I think of, if everybody just thought about their lives, anybody listening to this call, and think about, am I in that feeling of that kind of
mhm,
zone when I'm moving through my day at work or with my kids or my partner, or however you're moving in your day. And if it's choppy, or if it's constricted, or if it's constrained in some way, or if it's stressful or shaming, or some other lower vibrational describing words, then you know those are the times where, number one, you can use the exercises that Sue's talking about and that we've had, just tapping into meditation and going into our breathing, and just resetting ourselves to calm down and just center ourselves in our light center inside. But there's also that calling us back to our authentic selves. That's our soul self, that's expanded and free and connected to perfection. And I think when we're straining and we're struggling and we're trying to make this 3D realm work, we it just gets harder because we're pushing against uh, a flow that's actually inside us that we're just operating without a connection with. And when we tap into it again, I think we resync up with our authentic selves and our soul self, and then you find that things just get easier. And how many times have, I mean, I just try and give examples of like day-to-day 3D lives. You and I are very spiritually connected beings, but I still have to pay a cell phone bill. And sometimes I have to like call customer service. And I definitely know what it's like to sit on hold for like 45 minutes and you're like the ninth person in the queue. And so, and when those things happen, and then you have something, a bill that didn't work out, or a charge you don't recognize, or whatever it might be, something that's causing a little kink in your energy field for the day.
mhm,
um, we've all had experiences where there's things that trigger us to tighten up a little bit. And when we tighten, we should actually instead be breathing and connecting with our center more and calling in our authentic soul self, because I can guarantee you, when we do that, the phone call, all of a sudden you're next up in the queue. Like 8 people just got off the call and it's your turn. And in fact, you got like the manager supervisor who's giving out bonus credits on people's accounts that day, just just for being you and just for being a good customer, a loyal customer. And so, like everything starts to line up when we enter that authentic space and that aligned space inside ourselves. And for me on this call, I've just started to feel authenticity as
mm,
alignment with our divine selves and our soul selves and our light centers inside. And doors do seem to open when you get in that open, appreciative, flowful space, versus when you like slam the door or you yell at the manager and you tell them how unhappy you are with your bill and how nothing's going right with it. And you know, you get farther with that sense of alignment that creates greater kindness, that opens the windows and doors to greater connection and things manifesting easier for us, and to reinforce that, oh my gosh, I am that divine being. And it's amazing. I have to tell you that, so one little example from my family's life is that my partner lost her keys in the last week, which it was a key ring that had not just one key on it, but several other very important keys. And I don't know if anybody else has ever lost their keys. Have you ever had that experience, Sue, or you've been fortunate in the key department?
I haven't lost my keys for a week, knock on wood. I have trained myself to be organized in my life and have made a living out of being organizer because of it. And I have, lost things like my cell phone in the past, which is always hilarious when, of course, if you're like me and you keep it on vibrate or the battery's flat so you can't call yourself.
Yes.
So yeah, I think, yes, look, I have definitely had many, many experiences of losing things. And of course, even like my passport, the classic. Yeah. Where's my passport? Which, down this way in the world, we tend to travel more overseas. So, having a passport, that can be quite handy.
Yes.
So
these very valuable things, like anything like that, can somehow dematerialize out of our experience through our actions. Or sometimes I truly believe there's gremlins and fairies and elves that are, just messing with me sometimes to keep me sharper. And so I'm not so sure this didn't just happen with this ring of keys, but to make a long story short, it's easier if you can track the item that you're looking for and that it didn't leave your home. So no matter where it could be in your house, it's still there somewhere. But when you've traveled many, many, many locations before you realize that you're missing that item, now you have to think, oh gosh, where was I last that I can remember having it? And so over the course of the last nearly 5 or 6 days, there has been this searching for keys that are car keys and post office box keys and all kinds of things. And so I just have found it interesting, and we've done a good job of like trusting and saying the prayers. And I've called out, do you know the archangels' names that you should call for if you are missing something? Are you aware of that, Sue?
I don't know the specific name of the angel that's good at that, but I do know that there are beings who are famous, I suppose you could say, for being really good with helping people find lost things. I think it's the same angel that looks after children.
Oh, then that might be somebody different that I don't know. Well, I don't know much about this angel, but I know that Archangel Michael he helps with a lot of things. Oh, is that the one that also?
I think so. I'm not very good with names.
I know. I think just the intention of summoning help goes a long, long way. And so right. And for anybody listening to this call, like if you play in the energies where Sue and I live, nothing's permanent. I mean, really, we live in an impermanent world, and it's changing, and it's changing based on your vibration. So, and at any point, there's like 1,000 choice points we could make about the same decision we have to make in front of us. So when these keys went missing, we knew we've already journeyed this before, and we knew to call in help from the other side and from our guides and from spirit. And in, a series of another 3 to 4 days, that didn't materialize it right away. Like we thought, oh, good, they're on the case and I'm sure they'll turn up tomorrow. And then there was another tomorrow and another tomorrow. And we'd gone all the places that you could think, and we tracked. She'd been out of the house in many places that day, not even in our local area, and another area like an hour away where she works sometimes. And so, long story short, it was not turning up, but we still we've done this so many times. We have had so many experiences with spirit that we just kept trusting. And here's that authentic self coming up, because some people are, like, they're in the spiritual realms and they might be all about manifesting, but when you're really triggered, you get to see what really is the authentic truth of you, who you are,
Oh yeah.
when you can't find something you really, really want.
Yeah.
And so I think that was really, and so we actually very calmly just kept going through, just taking the steps of trusting, knowing that it was going to show up. I think, people who, are more into the Bible, I think there's some quote, something like nothing is lost in the eyes of God, right? So everything is already found. And then this morning, I'm going to tell you this, I listened to somebody's podcast on YouTube or somebody's YouTube video, and he was talking about, I don't know if it was manifesting or just being in these energies right now, but he was talking about just this concept that we already are these things. We already are any energy or any experience that we already want to have. And we just have to remember that we are it. And so I turned to my partner and I said, we need to do that with these keys. We need to know that we already know where the keys are because we're the
Mm-hmm.
keys. And so, right, I just
Mm-hmm.
basically said to her, let's remember where we put the keys because we already know.
Yep.
And so both of us, like an hour might have gone by, and we both, came back together. And I said, I feel like you're supposed to go blow the leaves outside where your car is, because it's fall here in the US. And so I said, and she said, I've already looked there, but you know what? When I was just, being in the last hour, she said, I got the same guidance. And I said, oh my gosh, well, that's the first same guidance we'd had over the 4 or 5 days. So I said, okay, so you're going to go blow the leaves. And I said, let's call in the guides again. Just, help us remember what we already know. That was a really important prayer. Like, help us remember what we already know. We already know where the keys are. And she came back inside and I could just hear her breathing. I knew that she'd found them. And I said, did you blow the leaves and find the keys? And she said, no, they were under another one of our cars the whole time. And she said, I'd looked there, I'd moved the car out, but somehow in getting our attention to, I don't know, that must've been it worked. We both got the message to go out and blow the leaves. And then what she had to do, she had to move this other car to get
Yep.
to the blower. And that's what led us to the keys. So this still is just amazing because at this level of talking about authenticity and alignment, this is so important because when there's something that triggers us into our fear, right, whatever that might be, and there's a lot of reasons to trigger into fear, right, in the world the way that it is and in the speed of time right now and the demands on our energy and our resources right now, it is important if you can align inside yourself with the belief that you have everything that you need inside you, right? And when you can align with that, and like that guy on YouTube, I wish I could remember his name. If I can remember it, I'll put it in the notes. It was just an interesting conversation. But I took away that what he said today about that you just have to remember what you already know, and you already are whatever the thing is that you might be desiring or trying to connect with. And so it took getting into our authentic selves that we've already practiced some of these steps of trusting spirit and trusting our higher selves and trusting that soul presence inside us to know beyond our human selves that clearly we're very challenged to remember the events over the last few days. We could not track where they had been set down. And so our human selves were not, getting it done. It was going to take partnering with spirit and partnering with energy. And really, it was right after that prayer. I mean, it was right after that prayer that said, I already know this. And it was amazing. And I think that is just such a powerful message for anyone, whatever you might feel is not aligned in your life right now. You already know the steps to take that's going to move you out of that experience and into something else if that's what you truly desire. And if you're not feeling authentic in your life in some way, and you have a public face and you have more of a private face, and if you have two worlds right now that you're trying to keep up with, you already know the steps inside you to sync those two worlds together where you can feel more aligned and be more authentic. And, we already have those keys as a metaphor. We already have those keys inside us to be more authentic. And we just have to unlock those any of the blocks inside us. And to me, when you were talking and you made some powerful suggestions, Sue, from your own experiences, I want to reiterate something. One thing that you said is that life is a series of smaller steps. And so finding those keys, it wasn't one prayer and instantly they showed up. It was a series of many steps over a period of days, and it could have gone on for weeks. I don't know what divine right timing, could have been, but the divine right timing helped us get to that prayer and helped us get to another level of openness, that it was then a few short steps out into our garage, right into our driveway, to materialize those keys. And I think that's a metaphor for all of us, that if you feel some kind of challenge being authentic or inauthentic at any level, we are growing our awareness of where we are being authentic. Many of us could feel that more now than we ever could feel before. We're getting more energetic cues in our life of just things are becoming more self-evident, where a job might have seemed aligned before, but all of a sudden now it might be approaching intolerable. That's cueing you that not only are you becoming more aware of yourself, but that the energies of the planet are changing. And so what might have been okay 6 months ago or 6 days ago might be shifting. And if you stay in that kind of fluid, authentic alignment, feminine energies, you're going to be more apt to be able to move with the shifts that are happening on the planet, inside us and outside of us, to stay in harmony with where that's leading you. And it's the people, the constipated response kind of metaphor. If you want to bear down and try and fight the stream of energy that's happening, that's just creating more tension in your life, and it's really not going to create the openings that you really most desire, that's going to create something new and a solution that you really ultimately want. But it has a harder time finding you when you get when you tighten up about it. And so I think that this concept of authenticity, as you can see by our conversation, that it really threads to many other concepts and many other aspects of our lives. And I think it's why it's such a significant one. And we may need to come back to it again another time, Sue, because I think there'll be other times that will reference this conversation about authenticity. And it's a tool. I mean, authenticity is a tool to move inside ourselves and move inside our lives in a more flowful, and I would say even more joyful way. And, out of the 5 days we couldn't find these keys, the first few days we kind of laughed about it. We'd stayed lighthearted about it. By the 4th or 5th day, having to keep swapping the one key that we had left, it starts to get a little less fun. And, but we knew to just, as best we could, stay playful. And one of the best ways to stay playful is to invite the fairies and to invite the spirit and to invite the realms of frequency and consciousness of light that is supporting us and is completely there to help all of us, to play with us, to help bring forth what we're seeking, right? Or what we feel like we've lost. And when you play, maybe that was the ultimate frequency. It was the faith. It was staying aligned in our authenticity in some way, and practicing what we teach, right, on our shows, and then letting the universe delight us in those playful frequencies of playing with the energy to let it materialize. And I'm telling you, I know we had already moved those cars out, and it was underneath one of the cars in our garage. And so I don't know that they didn't just dematerialize, Sue, from spirit, that was just a little exercise of faith that we needed to go through. But it's fun now because the keys are back. And there were moments that it wasn't so much fun, but it's a little story that maybe might inspire some of our listeners that this is going on. And there might be some flickering, we haven't talked too much about timelines, Sue. But if anybody listening can, appreciate or understand or tap into the possibility that there's other timelines happening in our lives right now. And so if you've seen any time movies where there's time twists or time seems to bend or morph in some way, Harry Potter series has a lot of that. it's possible that the keys dropped through a crack in time. I'm not so sure that that didn't happen. And we just had to recall it wherever they went. It's almost like they truly weren't there. And then they just dropped out of time and space back into our experience. And I'm grateful to the guides that brought them back to us. And it takes being grounded and centered, and also playing too with your divine self, to let things that seem impossible to find or impossible to manifest or to resolve. I'm sure any of us journeying the world right now, there could be something going on in our lives that's unpleasant in some way. And if we can relax back into that authentic version of our soul presence inside us that is connected to everyone and every realm and everything, nothing should be lost to us. Nothing should be inaccessible to us. The blessings that we desire and the solutions we want can drop into our experience very gently and filled with blessings if we can get to this space and this type of frequency that we're talking about today. And if we want to resist it and fight it, and people can do that. I know I've had my own versions of that in past years, and it just hasn't gone well for me. So I know when I resist and I go into that place, it really doesn't bring the desired experience and results that I want. And so, having journeyed that a few times, I do my best to trust and get into that space and really let my guidance come through. And that's where authenticity wants to partner with us in a lot of different ways in our lives. And it's a friend. I don't know that I'd ever called it that before, but I don't know if you can feel that it is like a spirit guide. Authenticity can come in as a mentor if we're not living something that we want to be really experiencing, whether we want it and we don't feel like we can't have it, or whether we're in something we don't want to be and we don't know a way out. I think taking these little steps that are a series of small decisions of whether to play or not play, of whether to resist or not resist, of whether to express ourselves fully and authentically or to hide ourselves. Sometimes that might be the right choice for some people. But we need to listen for what's the authentic choice that I need to make in any moment in our day to achieve the lived experience that we really want. And I think that's a really beautiful aspect of our ability as conscious creators to use to connect with our authenticity as a friend and a partner, to really manifest more consciously what we want and what we need in our lives. And I think that this topic, as I've said, Sue, of authenticity is probably going to weave itself into many more conversations that we have here on our Mind, Body, Spirit, Fitness conversations together, and truly probably in our other podcasts that we have with Lacey and I and some of our other guests. I think it's a really big part of the human experience right now as we evolve into our higher versions and spiritual versions of ourselves, and we remember ourselves as soul beings living in this human body. And so authenticity is a key vibration to keep calling into our awareness, even if we might know very well, if you're listening to this podcast and saying, wow, I'm listening to those two women and I am not living that way right now. But if you're listening to this conversation, obviously your soul presence is inviting you into the awareness that it's just a few choice points away from where you are right now to what you could be living in just a few hours, in just a few minutes, right? So like the shifts vibrationally can happen so quickly. You can be in one emotional experience and an energetic experience 1 minute, and you could take a couple breaths, center in your light, connect with your authentic self, and you could be in an entirely different vibrational experience of yourself, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. It is fluid.
Yeah.
And I actually just want to take the listeners back to your amazing, I loved that example of everyday life. And yes, haven't we all been there? I've lost whatever. And you hunt everywhere, and even where you look, it's not there, and you come back later and it wasn't there, and then it's suddenly there. Yes.
Yes.
There was a key point that you made when you made that decision, when you got clear about what the way forward was for you to find the keys, when you realized that you already knew where the keys were.
Yes.
So there's a really simple tool that people can use that really taps into that, and you suggested it yourself. You may not have realized as you were saying it, but that's why I want to draw the listeners' attention back to it, because this is a really neat little takeaway for people. So remembering who you are. So you already know who you are. You've forgotten, because we're playing this game, which is planet Earth. And this is part of that conversation around authenticity. So a really simple way, if you're wanting to attract into your life ways to become more authentic and remember who you are and be more in tune with yourself, and out of that more in flow with life and what's for your best, for your highest good, what's right for you, is to give the intention to ask for help to remember who you are, to ask for help to reconnect with your soul, to ask for help from God, source, higher self, whatever you perceive consciousness as being. It doesn't matter. Again, it's about what's authentic for you. So, and it's like so many of these amazing gifts and tools. It's deceptively simple, and you don't have to go and do anything special even to ask it. You just ask it. Just say, hey, look, help me remember, help me connect, help me rediscover who I am, help me be more aligned with my authentic self.
Yes.
And watch the space. And you may find that you might come across somebody who supports you. You may suddenly start to have internal experiences you hadn't had before. You may even find that you have people pressing your buttons, because sometimes spirit does that to kind of just get our attention about what we're not seeing. So, sometimes they kind of shake our tree a little bit just so that we can see that we're not what we're not seeing. But that tool that you used is spot on, because the thing is, at a soul level, we are conscious. At a soul level, we are already aware. We already know. We are already who we are. Now, at a soul level, we haven't forgotten anything. At a soul level, of course, we know where the keys are.
Right.
Because the soul doesn't forget.
Right.
And it's a really nifty tool to help you realign with that, and a wonderful, wonderful practical example. And I'm sure that on some level, one of the reasons that life experience you just had, Marie, unfolded the way it did was so that you could come into this call today and share that story, right down to the magic of how you made that shift in your own awareness. At the beginning of the tale, you were in a space where you were open to receive from spirit, and you were asking spirit on behalf of you to find it for you. And that's a common thing for people to do. Like, we talk to the angels, we talk to God or Goddess, we talk to our higher self, we say, please help me, please, provide this for me. But there's a certain point in our own journey where we begin to realize that we are the ones who can do that. And that's the part where we start to become more self-empowered. And that, if nothing else, is a really core reason to take the steps to begin to discover who you are, because there lies the path of self-empowerment in a balanced, holistic, humble, enlightening, graceful way. So I guess if there's like a end of chat takeaway for people, there's obviously been a couple of tools that we've suggested along the way in this conversation, but just that simple request, to yourself or to God, to say, help me reconnect and remember who I am. Help me discover my authentic self. Help me know who I am.
That was perfect. That was perfect how that wove together, Sue. I just really feel in the words we've shared today, but also in the frequencies, which is what we also want to draw attention to, that in every experience anyone is having, whether they're watching a film or they're at a sports event or at the theater, wherever they might be, there's energy underlying those experiences. That's what's informing your soul self, right? And when we can invite that energetic connection with what we already are, with what we already know, with who we really are, then we're not separated, which is the game of this earth realm. That's what we all chose to experience, was the game for a long period of time. And we are coming back into remembering ourselves as energetic, authentic, vibrational, light-filled beings. And so, just maintaining that awareness too, when you're using those words, you're playing in the realm of energy, and you're inviting what you already are, which is an energetic divine being, and you're accessing your divinity's ability, as you said, Sue, to access all things in all realms. And there's nothing that isn't known to you. And so it ended up being a very powerful example and a nice complement into all that we've talked about today. And I want to thank you, Sue, for joining me in this amazing conversation, and our listeners, and the beautiful people who post comments. We invite more comments and just respectful comments, but we really do know that we're forming a community here at Whole Soul School and Foundation, and we appreciate everyone who tunes in and listens to our conversations, and we hope that they really, these insights and these tools can support you in your journey. And so if you would like to connect with more of the offerings of Whole Soul School and Foundation, you can visit our website at wholesoulschoolandfoundation.org. You can find us on social media. So you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And we have a lot of different offerings there, including some twice a week, little inspirational doses of quotes that we've posted that follow the themes that we have for Whole Soul School and Foundation. So there's just a lot we have going on between our blogs and our articles and some. So if you're looking for inspiration, we're the place. And Sue, I want to see if you can tell people where they can find more about you and your offerings and messages.
So at the moment, I am on YouTube, and the work that I'm doing is really focused around creation, and I have a small selection of videos that I've loaded, which include a guided meditation to realign and connect you back into Gaia and into your own light and love. I've also got a couple of channeled messages about what's happening on the planet, and there's some more things to come soon. You can find me, the YouTube channel that it is under is Susanne Wells. I spelled my name for you earlier in the podcast. Yes. But what I'm going to do is, when this podcast is posted, I'm going to put into the comments section a link to my channel on YouTube, if you don't mind, Marie, if I do it this way.
Oh, perfect.
Then that way you can just click on that if you would choose to, and check out what's there. As I said, it's very much the beginning. There'll be more things coming as I build up my portfolio, which is very much the start of the process. But I'm very excited to be finally in a place where I have the time and the freedom to begin this journey into the world of spiritual sharing and spiritual community to support the planet, because we've all got lots going on at the moment and lots of big energies happening. And so, yeah, keep your eye out and I'll keep you posted.
It is very exciting. And I would say another level of just more authentic self-expression, right? That's what we do when we continue to expand ourselves and our light and want to share our messages in the world, and we take the next step. And this is just another beautiful seed starting step for you, Sue. And I know people will want to tap into the messages that you offer to us there. I've already listened to a couple of the meditations, and they're just absolutely beautiful. They take you to another very peaceful realm inside yourself and a state of awareness that I just find super valuable.
Yes, so I work with nature,
Yes.
in nature, connecting us into our soul, but also into creation as sentience, creation as living. So that covers everything from the planet Gaia through to fairies and elementals, and right out into the cosmos, right out into the actual planets that spin around the sun, through to outer space's version of fairies and angels, because it's all one creation, it's all one thing. So over time, as I said, the portfolio of what I offer will expand, but at the moment, the stuff I've got there is really, really accessible. So it's about connecting us back into a harmonious relationship with Mother Earth, so that we are living and breathing and experiencing our own soul connection to being on the planet. So if you're interested, check it out. If you're not, that's okay.
Well, it's worth your time, and we're going to continue to have these conversations each month in Mind, Body, Spirit, Fitness here at Whole Soul School and Foundation, and I think that there's so much beauty and grace in connecting with the natural realms, and a lot of people don't have time in their day to connect. So when you connect with someone with Sue's gifts, you can tap into nature and get those higher frequencies all in one message and one download, and it's so beautiful. So thank you for sharing your messages in the world in this way now, and thank you to our listeners for spending time with us today. And we'll see you in other podcasts this month for Whole Soul School and Foundation, and we'll see you again for Mind, Body, Spirit, Fitness next month in December of 2019. It is amazing that we are wrapping up this year of 2019. It was a quick one.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was. So everybody enjoy your November, because I think it's going to go by in a blink. And
yes.
We send love and blessings to everyone, and we'll see you next month. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. See you later.